Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. In the prestigious center of Moscow, where the avenues shine with glass, marble, and discreet neon lights, on the heights of the Arbat, this district as old as it is arrogant, stands one of the most coveted restaurants in the Russian capital, Volna d'Or. The building, a former neo-Baroque mansion renovated with absolute refinement, boasts a polished granite facade, columns with gilded capitals, and tall windows that reveal elegant silhouettes behind velvet curtains. The restaurant's name shines in simple letters set in the blackened metal of a backlit sign. Inside, everything is a sumptuous luxury. Dark oak floors, walls adorned with Russian Impressionist canvases, soft lighting from Czech crystal chandeliers, and musical ambience provided by a trio of violinists playing pieces by Rachmaninoff. That evening, like every Friday at 8 p.m. sharp, Viktor Alexandrovich Morozov walks through the doors. His arrival is a well-rehearsed choreography, a black cashmere coat picked by the maitre d', two discreetly suited bodyguards who step aside but are never far away, and a silent greeting to the regulars who bow slightly when they see him. Viktor settles in Nontable, a secluded corner, near the large bay window overlooking the frozen Moskva River. At 58, he is one of the most powerful men in the country, and it shows in the way he breathes. His face, a stern mask, bears the marks of a life spent conquering and dominating. A broad forehead, piercing steel-gray eyes, impeccably styled silver hair, thin, motionless lips. A former oil oligarch, now a savvy convert to telecommunications, he owns it all. Newspapers, luxury hotels, Black Sea ports, influence over members of parliament, and shares in consortiums worth billions. He is respected. He is feared. And sometimes, in circles he no longer frequents, he is hated. But above all, he is alone. He scans the room, not with curiosity, but with the haughty detachment of those who know they are no longer touchable. His gaze glides over the young wives of billionaires, the businessmen in skinny ties and Swiss watches, the subsidized artists who laugh too loudly. His gaze judges, classifies, then mentally erases them, like objects in a dusty display case. A waiter, young, nervous but trained to excellence, approaches reverently. "Good evening, Mr. Morozov. The chef has prepared your favorite dish, venison liver marinated in Crimean black wine, served on a bed of white truffles and accompanied by a pomegranate and Sichuan pepper reduction." Viktor nods, still without a word. He gently opens the button on his left sleeve, winds his Swiss watch with its crown engraved with his initials, then takes a small white pill from his pocket, his daily antacid. He places it next to his plate. A mechanical gesture, millimeter perfect, like everything about him. He is about to raise the fork to his lips when suddenly, a raspy voice cuts through the velvet silence. "Don't eat that." The quiet murmur of violins grows muffled. Conversations freeze as if struck by frost. The room turns as one toward the entrance. An old man stands there, motionless, bearded, his face tanned by the wind and fatigue, his cheeks hollow, and his gaze sharp as a blade forgotten in the ice. He is wearing a worn military coat, from which a few melted snowflakes still drip. His boots are soiled with snow and mud. His appearance clashes with the icy elegance of the place, like an ink stain on tissue paper. "Did you hear me?" He repeats in a trembling but determined voice that "don't eat this. This dish is poisonous." A shudder runs through the room. A few customers tense up. Waiters exchange anxious glances. Viktor's two bodyguards instantly dart forward, hands over their earpieces, moving briskly to intercept the intruder. But Viktor, still seated, only raises one finger. Let him talk. There is an icy authority in his voice, impossible to dispute. "It's not every day that a beggar saves my life." The old man stops 2 steps from the table. He's trembling slightly, not from fear, but from a suppressed inner tension. He looks Viktor straight in the eyes. I saw a man in the kitchen. A clerk. He poured a powder into the plate. A fine, grayish substance. I was a chemist once. I know how to recognize poison, even in the dark." He thought no one would see him. Viktor stares at him, impassive. Then he turns to the restaurant manager, who has arrived running, red with panic. "Check immediately. And bring me that cook." The director, embarrassed, tries to calm things down. Mr. Morozov, I assure you, this is all nonsense. We employ only carefully selected personnel. This man, this intruder, is clearly not sane. Let us call the police and... I didn't ask your opinion. Bring me the cook. Now. Victor's tone cracked like a military order. The employees obeyed immediately. But 10 minutes later, the kitchen assistant is nowhere to be found. Disappeared. Vanished. Victor returned home, more troubled than he cared to admit. The icy elegance of his villa, lost in the hills above Rybolovka, could not dispel the unease that had haunted him since that scene in the restaurant. He had experienced betrayals, attempts at intimidation, even assassinations disguised as financial disasters. But never, someone had tried to poison him in front of him, in a public place, under the crystal chandeliers of Volna d'Or. He had the dish analyzed by a private Swiss laboratory, renowned for its discretion and precision. 3 days later, the verdict fell like a sword. The liver contained an alkaloid derived from curare, chemically modified to slow its effects, making them less detectable. A seemingly gentle death, progressive paralysis, respiratory arrest, then eternal silence. Victor didn't sleep that night. He sat alone in his library, an untouched glass of cognac in his hand, staring into the fireplace. Who could have wanted to kill him? A competitor? A former associate? An impatient heir? Or something even older? Something he'd forgotten? The next day, he sent for the old man, Anatoly Nikolaevich Ivanov, a ghost in the middle of a city of glass and concrete. The first contact was strange. The old man refused at first, not out of fear, but out of defiance. He demanded that Victor speak to him himself, without messengers. Finally, after 2 days of silence, Anatoly agreed. He arrived at the villa's gate wearing the same threadbare coat, soaked by the snow, a carved wooden cane in his hand, his eyes as sharp as ever. He entered without embarrassment, without fear, like a man with nothing left to lose, or like someone who already knew the place. Victor, alone in his large living room with its Italian furniture, observed him for a long time. The man had aged, certainly, but something in his posture, in his heavy silence, awakened a distant memory. An amphitheater room, lined up vials, formulas on the board. Why did you save me? Victor finally asked, breaking the silence. The old man stared at him, his pale eyes seeming to probe his soul. Because despite everything, you were my student, he murmured. The word pupil sank like a blade into Victor's memory. Your student? Yes, Anatoly continued calmly. At the St. Petersburg Medical University. You were still Vitya Morozov. You wore worn shirts. You ate at the soup kitchen. But you were brilliant. Curious. Fierce. And I was a professor of toxicology. A cold shiver ran down Victor's neck. Anatoly continued, his voice sounding like it had emerged from a long-silenced past. He recounted how he had been one of Russia's most eminent researchers, a specialist in neurotoxins, sought after by state laboratories, courted by the army, until the day an ambitious, young, and hungry investor got his hands on his work. You wanted to buy my patent, Vitya, a molecule capable of neutralizing curare-based neurotoxins, a revolution. I refused you because I still believed in scientific ethics. So you changed your methods. You funded an investigation against me, fabricated evidence of theft, bribed the deans, and signed the papers that got me expelled. Victor blanched. Memories, hazy, came flooding back. Yes, there had been a reluctant teacher. Yes, he had been said to be unstable. But all that belonged to another life, to another man. I lost everything, Anatoly continued. My license, my reputation. My wife died of cancer 2 years later. I wondered. I survived thanks to my memory, my knowledge. And you built your pharmaceutical empire on my molecule. The NeuroGuard, right? This drug that opened the doors to Gazprom Med for you. A long silence fell. Victor stood up and walked slowly to the window. For the first time in a long time, he felt something strange and foreign, shame. And yet you saved my life? He finally asked, his voice hoarser than he intended. Anatoly shrugged. He looked around him, at this immense house, these marble columns, without the slightest admiration. It wasn't for you, he said. It was for me. I refused to let a poison kill again under my name, even indirectly. I saw that boy pouring the substance. I recognized him as one of my former students. Ironically, he, too, perhaps, wanted to imitate me. So I acted. He stood up slowly, gathering his coat. "The debt is settled, Vitya. Don't mess with me." Before going through the door, he added in an almost soft voice, "But if you really want to understand why they wanted to kill you, look beyond your enemies. Look at those who imitate you, those you unknowingly trained." Then he disappeared into the Moscow night, like a shadow returning to reclaim the memory of past faults. That night, Victor does not sleep. He wanders the corridors of his silent villa, the walls covered with contemporary paintings, trophies, and framed certificates that shine in the darkness like silent witnesses to his successes, and now, his faults. He locks himself in his office, a place he hasn't visited in years, delegating everything to his advisors. He opens the safes, combs through old files, and stirs up the dust of a past he thought was sealed forever. His heart beats slowly, but each beat seems to carry the weight of a decade. He rereads the legal correspondence, the first contracts, the expert reports. And suddenly, he comes across a document. A simple yellowed sheet, marked with an official seal, the original patent application by Professor Anatoly Ivanov. Signed by his hand, dated, authenticated. In the margin, a handwritten note. To be closed without further action. Conflict of interest. Procedure to be buried. It is the handwriting of his former lawyer, now dead. Victor remains frozen. He understands. Everything Anatoly said was true. There had been no theft, no fraud, just the cold, methodical desire to make a man disappear in order to steal his invention. This isn't a youthful mistake. It's a calculated crime. And this crime has a name, all-consuming ambition, his own. The next morning, the journalists were summoned to the headquarters of Morozov Biotech in exceptional conference. The room is full. No one knows what the billionaire will announce, but rumors are rife. Victor enters alone, without a press officer, without an ostentatious costume. Dressed simply, his features drawn, but his gaze clear. He steps up to the lectern, adjusts the microphone, and takes a deep breath. "Ladies and gentlemen, today, I am not speaking to you as a CEO. I am speaking to you as a man." A shudder runs through the room. "I built part of my empire on a betrayal. A silent betrayal, but a decisive one. A good man, a brilliant scientist, lost everything because of my decisions. Professor Anatoly Ivanov is the true inventor of the molecule on which I based my first patents." Dead silence. Cameras flash. Faces exchange looks of disbelief. "Today, I am returning all rights to this patent to its legitimate creator. And I am committing to funding the creation of the Ivanov Institute for Medical Research, which I will endow with 50 million rubles this year." The announcement is an earthquake. Journalists are agitated. News channels interrupt their programs. Shareholders panic. But Victor is calm. For the first time in years, he has nothing to sell. He has something to repair. A week later, Victor invites Anatoly to dinner. Not to a Michelin-starred restaurant. Not to an expensive private dining room. Just a small neighborhood cafe with plastic tablecloths and the scent of hot borscht and rye bread wafting through the air. They sit face to face, two generations, two men who were complete opposites and who were brought together by poison. The waitress sets down a steaming bowl and a homemade vodka. "You know," begins Anatoly, stirring his spoon. "The poison I saw. I knew it." He looks up at Victor. "It was a signature. A modified compound I saw only once, a long time ago. Someone who hates me more than you. Someone who wanted to remind me of what I had lost." Victor presses his hand to the frosted glass. "Do you think he'll come back?" Anatoly smiled, without joy. "Poison is patient. It only strikes once. It leaves its mark. It tests consciences. The one who wanted to separate us today sees us dining together. He has lost." A silence. Then Victor raises his glass. "So let's drink, this time, to the truth." But Anatoly, with a calm gesture, corrects him. "No, Vitya. To redemption." They drink. And this time, the vodka doesn't taste like power, but like a beginning. Years later, the Ivanov Institute for Medical Research, located in Kazan, is becoming one of the centers of excellence in all of Eastern Europe. A simple, bright building, with laboratories open to young researchers from all walks of life. Anatoly is teaching there again, without any claim to fame, but with the same passion as before. On the ground floor, in a discreet corridor, an engraved plaque sometimes attracts attention. To the one who saw the poison, but chose to reach out. And further down, in smaller, almost erased letters. Donated by Viktor Morozov, former student.